In case you missed it, Saturday was a huge day down here in Barcelona as the 37th America's Cup reached its crescendo.
Nothing in the gate bias.
Today is the day that this team and all their supporters, and there's thousands of them here, have been working towards for 3 years. And now they've got it, the 37th America's Cup. And what an achievement. No other team has achieved this in the modern era 3 times in a row. It is quite remarkable. They've led the foiling agenda for over a decade now, and they're continuing to lead the way. Going into this event several months ago, there were all kinds of theories on the pundits on who was going to do what, who was going to have the upper hand, who would be the dominant challenger or challengers. And to be honest, most of those theories were wrong. But the one thing that most people had right was that this team was going to be very, very hard to beat. And they went into this event as the favourites, and they've come out of it as just that. Dominant America's Cup victors, and well-deserved victors with it. Today is the day. The dust has barely settled from the 37th America's Cup, but the start of the cycle for the 38th Cup is already underway. There are plenty of sore heads in Barcelona on Sunday morning, lots of slow starts and late morning brunches, as we all took stock of a highly charged evening the night before. This is also the point where those that are closely involved with the Cup will begin to plan for the next one. It's a fascinating time as yacht clubs and teams start jostling for position. Traditionally, as the winning team makes its last pass across the finishing line, a challenge for the next America's Cup will be handed to the defenders. A deal will usually be pre-arranged, and the process of handing a challenge the second the winning boat crosses the line is done to ensure that a last-minute outside challenge can be avoided. But this time the process was slightly different. And my conversations about the future started with the Kiwis and one of their most senior staff, Kevin Shoebridge.
Hiya.
Well, what a day. Well done.
Thank you.
I mean, it's been a long haul, isn't it?
It has been a long haul. It's been a long 3.5 years. And, you know, I was just talking a little bit before, it's been a long 3.5 years, not only having to, you know, all the team stuff and trying to develop a fast boat and a great team, but it's all the other bolt-on type stuff that you're involved with your defender. When you're a defender, you've got to, you know, move the event to another country and come up with design and come up with these ideas with hydrogen and Women's America's Cups and Youth America's Cups, and that's a lot of work. The e-sport and all those things. So it has been a full-on time, but
was there ever a point where you thought, oh my goodness, this is really quite a lot of pressure? Because we were sort of thinking that from the outside, to be honest.
No, it's always there, and we're wary of it, and we've got to manage it pretty carefully. But I think we did a good job, especially here in Barcelona over the last 4.5 months, and the ACE organisation's become quite a big, entity by itself, who's taken a lot of that stuff away from us.
What about the challengers? Were they tougher than you'd expected?
Not tougher than expected, but they were very good. I think in Auckland we had a range of boats that had the ability to be there in the end, where I think here all the teams were strong. And although it didn't play out how everyone expected in the end, I think it was probably one of the strongest, AC challenging groups that we've had for years.
What do you think the secret was to your success?
Well,
Or is, I should say.
Like we've always got this internal thing that we do everything we can to be innovative and push and develop and never rest on our laurels, even when we're testing at home by ourselves for 3 years. So I think we've given that a good nudge. We know it was going to be really tough. We knew the teams were going to be strong, but we've got now we've got a design team that's been together for a long period of time. There's 40 of them, and we've got this wonderful sort of cohesion between the design team and the sailing team, who are also very technical in their own right, who add a huge amount to it. And I think that's been a key. When we're developing foils and developing sails, that's very much a joint effort that happens between sailors and designers. We're not just given something to sail with, that's something that we work on together.
And what's been the toughest bit, do you think?
It's been the toughest bit. Well, really, sitting on the sidelines is never fun. We enjoyed the preliminary events and the round robins, but you've got that terrible 5-week period where you're by yourself. And that's always going to be the way it is. That's what happens. But that's quite tough. But I think we were well aware of that because we've done that before. And we made sure that we had a very strong program, that we were going to make sure that we were a quicker, better team than we were in the last time everyone saw us. And I think we are.
And finally, has a challenger been accepted now?
Yes, we've accepted a challenge this afternoon, but we're going to sort of leave that for another day. But yes, that's done.
But while the defenders were coy about who they'd accepted the challenge from, it didn't take long to find out. Well, Bertie, not quite the result that the squadron were after, but I gather we're already on a path for the next one.
Yeah, it comes around pretty quickly, doesn't it? So yes, we made a formal challenge to the Defender, Emirates Team New Zealand, Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, as they crossed the finishing line to take the cup, and our challenge has been accepted. So here we go again.
Yeah, and I mean there is a sort of bit of case of deja vu for you, really, wasn't it? Because for the last one you put in that challenge down in Auckland. How different was this, or was it different this time?
Well, I think it was different in two ways. I mean, firstly, just we were in a pretty different setting, by which I mean last time we were sitting on a boat out on the racecourse. This time we were locked away ashore. But actually the much bigger difference was that this time round we were challenging the very team that we were battling with out on the water.
Right.
So it produced, which of course in Auckland we weren't, because we were already out of the cup at that stage. So it produced a fairly interesting dynamic of harmony and like-mindedness ashore, and afloat maybe not so much.
Yeah, I guess so. Now there is quite a complicated process obviously involved in any cup cycle, and we covered that the last time we had a chat, so I guess if people want to drill into that. But just give us a quick overview of what this means. What happens from here? So you hand in a challenge, it gets accepted, then what happens?
So the challenge is really in two parts. So it starts by declaring the challenger as a qualifying yacht club. You can go into detail of what that means, but and goes on to say that under the terms of the deed of gift, we are going to come and sail against you. Now you have to give a minimum of 10 months' notice. The dates we put in the challenge, therefore, are more than 10 months from now, but they are actually in 2025. But it then goes on to say, but we're mindful of the ability to sit down and talk about how we want to run this cup together, which is obviously what we're going to go and do. Right.
And so do you think there's much chance that the next race will be in 2025? Will it be as soon as that, or is that pretty unlikely?
No, it's extremely unlikely, because what it would mean is that we failed to come to any agreement on the protocol for the next America's Cup. So yeah, that would be what is termed as a deed to gift match.
And do you have any feel, or it's too early to say when the next cup might be at a guess?
Discussions, as you can imagine, it's less than 24 hours since we put that letter in and the letter was accepted, and it's a process that we'll now start to go through to talk about.
Right. And so as far as the shape of the cup, is there any, again, of course it is, as you say, less than 24 hours since it happened, but do you have any feel for what the next cup might look like? In the current protocol, my understanding is that there was an acceptance by all the teams that took part in this event that if they found themselves in the position they're in, it would be an AC75s, unless they wanted to pay an excess on that to buy it out. But so we, I guess, know that it's going to be AC75s.
Yep.
But what about the other aspects, the women's, the youth, all the other things that we saw?
Yeah, absolutely. So the wraparound bits, which are really important, and just to confirm, yes, absolutely AC75s. Obviously, they will evolve further, just as they evolve from AC36 to AC37. I'm sure we're going to see even more evolution the next time round. AC40, absolutely here to stay. Youth Cup, Women's Cup, 100% here to stay. And actually what we really want to do, and we have a common interest in this with the Defender, is to increase the amount of sailing that's going to be taking place between cups, and to expand where we can our youth program and our women's program, and that's something we are in absolute agreement on, and I think will be welcomed by everyone.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, that definitely stood out. I mean, it's definitely stood out, and it was good stuff.
It was, and hugely successful, and I was very involved in our British Athena Pathway program, headed up by Hannah Mills. I mean, what an amazing group of people, really extraordinary, and I think to walk away with a second in the women's and a third in the youth is absolute credit to a wonderful bunch of people.
Yeah, it was absolutely great to watch. So this has been a very different cup as well in lots of sort of subtle ways, I guess. I mean, one of the things that stands out is that it's often said that being the challenger of record is actually a poisoned chalice, and that no one who's been a challenger of record has ever won the cup. In fact, I think I've only gone on to be in the cup match once, I think, since the modern era of multi-challengers. But you seem to have made it work for you. Is that how it feels? I mean, this has been the best, most successful British campaign for, 90 years now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, thank you for constantly reminding me that no challenger has ever won the America's Cup, and I'll just take it as read that I know that now. Yeah, look, we've had a really good relationship with the Defender, and actually I think it's a long time since a Defender and Challenger of Record have had so few disputes. In fact, if you want to guess the number of disputes between the Challenger of Record that went in front of the arbitration panel, it's 0.
Yeah.
And that in itself shows that we're kind of on the same track. Obviously, there are things that as a challenger we'd like to see, that as a defender they're not so keen on. That's always going to be the case. But generally speaking, we're all moving in the right direction. And in doing so, we are giving quite a bit of continuity into the Cup, which is what it needs. Because if it needs investment, it needs continuity. Otherwise, you just never know what's coming up around the corner. And that's not a good thing for the America's Cup.
And would you say that's part of the reason why you and Ineos Britannia were able to get so far as you did, and get to really get to being pretty close to?
Well, yes, because it's been an 8-year partnership, right. And with the benefit of all that continuity, and it's probably no great surprise that the teams, that the 3 top teams in the Challenger Series were the 3 teams that competed in the last Cup. Obvious. So, I mean, that said, for us now, we're going into our 4th successive Cup, and we're just going to keep going. I mean, we're not quitting now.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear, because we often hear that, particularly at this point in the Cup. People say, no, we're going to go ahead, and then loads of things sort of change later on. But, I mean, to play devil's advocate for just 1 minute, you said, the amount of cases in the arbitration panel are 0. of course, absolutely right. That's actually a publicly available area that you can test. But to play devil's advocate, some might say, well, that just says that haven't you been too weak? You haven't been tough enough against the defenders.
Absolutely, and that's a natural judgment that people might make. Genuinely, if there was a fight that, you know, there was something that we really disagreed with, then of course we would have gone to task on it. But I think it's unrealistic to think that a defender and a challenger are always going to have exactly the same view on everything, because there are things in the cup, and we've talked about this before, which gives an advantage to the defender, which the defender is naturally going to want to hang on to. And as a challenger, I mean, you can just argue on every single point if you want, but I'm not really sure how that moves things on, and I'm not really sure it's particularly good for the sport. So yeah, easy to say there were no disputes, therefore they just said yes to everything. Yeah, but there was things that went the other way as well, where the defender was respectful of our views and agreed the other way around. So yeah.
And I guess the bottom line is that actually we saw some of the closest racing we've seen for a very long time. We saw proper match racing return, and that must be connected to at least some kind of mutual consent in arriving at a point where there's good solid racing.
Yeah, I mean, again, through the evolution of the boats, they've and the evening out to a degree is seen on the water. And again, you and I were both in Auckland together. We watched pretty one-sided races most of the time. So that was a huge step up, and actually, you know, in the end, in a lot of the conditions, it was a proper boat race. It was actually down to the sailors. It wasn't down to his boat's faster than mine. And I think even through to the cup itself, I don't think many people would say that there was a huge speed differential overall between the defender and the challenger.
It was remarkable to watch. What's the mood within the squadron and within the team now? I guess is it sort of bittersweet. On the one hand, you're moving forward. On the other hand, didn't quite get to where you wanted to be. What was the sort of last night? What was the mood in the camp?
Well, the mood was very different to whatever we are now 2 weeks ago, when we came out on top of the Challenger Series and won the Louis Vuitton. And clearly, you know, you feel differently when you don't win to when you do win. But this has been, and forgive me for the well-used phrase, but this has been a huge journey for this team, and an extension of that last cup. And I think the team feel pretty proud of what they've done, and they absolutely should. So I look at it as a really successful 4-year campaign, which didn't quite at the end get where it needed to get to, but goodness me, it got pretty close. It's
been an interesting run, hasn't it? I mean, the last few campaigns, because we have been moving forwards, whereas I think in our lifetimes that hasn't always been the case, is that we've had these sort of campaigns that have gone in with a lot of good intentions and a lot of good sailors and a lot of good technology, but have never quite made it, and then there's no continuity, and then we're back to square one again, and hopes are raised. But this string of campaigns feels different.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, delving back into the history books, look, well, I'll give you a few fun facts. Britain has competed for the America's Cup 17 times in 173 years. And up until last week, out of 17 challenges, only 5 individual races had ever been won. 17 challenges, 173 years, 5 races. So to win 2 this time round, statistically, has moved the dial. We just need to win 7 next time.
This has been a spectacular cup with so many different facets and innovations. It's also been one hell of a ride, and it's not over yet. Aside from staying in touch with the developments around the next cup, we'll be taking a look at some of the fascinating stories that we didn't have time to tell during the heat of the event. We'll also be producing a series that looks back at how the 37th America's Cup was won. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching. It's been great to share the event with so many people around the world. Thanks for your kind comments. We'd love doing it. Until next time.
We love you. You're awesome.